Part 1. The conference room on Earth was filled with tension. Captain Jake Morrison sat at the long table, his hands folded in front of him. Across from him stood Zeekrath, a tall alien who looked like a giant insect. His eyes were dark and shiny, and his mouth parts clicked together when he spoke. Dr. Lisa Grant sat next to Jake. She was reading through documents on her tablet. Her face showed more and more disbelief as she read each page. Zeekrath seemed pleased with himself. He had just finished explaining the rules that Earth must follow if they wanted to join the Galactic Council. The rules were not good for humans. Jake spoke slowly and carefully. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. We can join your council, but we cannot build any military ships at all? Zeekrath's eyes gleamed. Yes, human. That is exactly right. Your species has shown that you are too violent. The council has decided that humanity can only build civilian ships for the next 200 years. You can build farming ships, mining ships, and research ships, but nothing with weapons. Lisa looked up from her tablet. This treaty says that military vessels are any ships built with the main purpose of fighting wars. Is that correct? Yes, Dr. Grant, the council does not want to see human warships attacking our peaceful trade. Routs. Zeekrath's voice was full of contempt. Your kind will learn to be civilized, eventually. Jake looked at Lisa. Something passed between them. A shared understanding. Zeekrath noticed and felt uneasy. We accept your terms, Jake said simply. 3 months passed quickly. The shipyards floating above Mars were busier than ever before. Thousands of workers moved between the construction platforms. The sound of welding torches and machinery never stopped. Commander Danny Walsh stood in the observation deck. He watched as the first of humanity's new fleet took shape. The ship was huge, almost 2 kilometers long. Its hull reflected the bright construction lights. She is beautiful, said Lieutenant Amy Cooper. She was the chief engineering officer. The agricultural designation was approved without any problems. Danny nodded and smiled. Yes, the council approved the HTF harvest without any issues. After all, it is just a farming ship. Amy pulled up the ship's specifications on her tablet. We have agricultural processing arrays that use electromagnetic acceleration to launch seed pods at very high speeds. We have soil analysis lasers that are powerful enough to cut through solid rock. And my personal favorite, we have defensive particle screens to protect our crops from space debris. All perfectly legitimate for a farming ship. Danny agreed. How many more ships are we building? 15 in this group alone. The designs are spreading to every human shipyard in the solar system. We have the cultivator, the harvester, the plowshare. Amy's eyes sparkled with amusement. Admiral Patricia Hayes personally approved the construction of an entire agricultural fleet. Down on Earth in the design bureau, Frank Miller worked at his station. He was surrounded by holographic blueprints. His colleague, Dr. Kate Stevens, appeared beside him on a video screen. She was calling from the Luna Research Facility. Frank, tell me you solved the cooling problem with the tractors, Kate said. Frank moved the hologram around, showing a design for what the Galactic Council thought was a simple asteroid mining drill. Better than solved. The thermal regulation system for our mining equipment can now work continuously for 6 hours. That is 6 hours of our mining lasers cutting through anything. What about the projectile problem? Ah, yes, the ore launchers. Frank's smile was dangerous. It turns out that a railgun designed to launch ore containers into collection nets works just as well with tungsten rods. The council approved them because we are just moving mining materials efficiently. Kate laughed. I love it. What about defensive systems? We are installing advanced meteorite deflection grids on all ships. They generate electromagnetic fields strong enough to redirect incoming space debris traveling at high speeds. The fact that these fields can also deflect energy weapons and kinetic projectiles is just a coincidence. 6 months into the construction program, the Galactic Council started to notice. Zeekrath found himself facing Jake Morrison again. But this time the human seemed different. He was confident in a way that made Zeekrath uncomfortable. We have received reports of unusual activity in your system, Zeekrath said. Your agricultural fleet seems very well armed for farming ships. Jake spread his hands innocently. I am not sure what you mean, Ambassador. We are simply following the treaty exactly as written. Every ship we have built is designated for civilian purposes. Your farming ships appear to have weapons arrays. Electromagnetic seed dispersal systems, Jake corrected. essential for large-scale atmospheric seeding operations on planets we want to terraform. Surely the Council does not object to humanity preparing to feed itself on new worlds. Zikrath's mouth parts clicked with agitation. And the laser systems? Mineral analysis and excavation tools. We need to assess soil composition from orbit. The beams need to be powerful enough to penetrate planetary crust for taking samples. The armor, plating, micrometeorite shielding. Space is a dangerous place, Ambassador. We would be irresponsible if we did not protect our civilian crews. Lisa joined the conversation. Perhaps you would like to inspect the ships yourself. We have nothing to hide. Every system serves a documented civilian purpose. Zikrath knew he was being tricked, but the humans had been clever. Too clever. The treaty had no rules for this kind of creative interpretation. The alien ambassador left the meeting frustrated. He reported back to the Council, but there was nothing they could do. The humans had not broken any rules. They had simply found ways around them. Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the reports in her office. She was a stern woman in her 50s with gray streaked hair. Her second-in-command, Colonel Steve Warren, stood across from her desk. Ma'am, we are ahead of schedule on all construction projects. The Council suspects something, but they cannot prove anything. Patricia nodded. Good, how are the crews performing? Very well. The training programs are producing officers who understand both civilian operations and combat tactics. When the time comes, we will be ready. If the time comes, Patricia corrected, though her tone suggested she believed otherwise. I do not want war, Steve. But I will not leave humanity defenseless because some aliens decided we are too dangerous to trust with our own protection. Steve understood perfectly. He had been there 20 years ago when the first alien scouts arrived at Earth. He had seen the contempt in their eyes when they looked at humanity's technology. He had heard the dismissive way they talked about humans as primitive warmongers. The Council made a mistake, Steve said quietly. They thought they could control us with paperwork. Patricia allowed herself a thin smile. They forgot that humans are very good at finding loopholes. Our agricultural fleet will be the most heavily armed farming operation in galactic history. The HTF Harvest and her sister ships continued their testing. Each exercise pushed the boundaries of what civilian ships could do. The crews became more skilled. The systems became more refined, and all the while the shipyards kept building more ships. Part 2, the proving grounds floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. This was a region where humanity tested their new agricultural fleet. What the Galactic Council did not know was that these tests had very little to do with farming. Captain Ben Hughes commanded the HTF Harvest. It was humanity's first fully operational agricultural ship. His crew of 200 people worked with precision. They ran their ship through movements that would have impressed any military commander. Bring the seed dispersal system online, Ben ordered from his command chair. The bridge was large and spacious. It had backup systems that the Council had approved as necessary safety features for civilian operations. Lieutenant Paul Green worked at the weapons console. His official title was Agricultural Specialist. Seed dispersal system charging. Electromagnetic rails at 90% capacity. On the main screen, an old mining station came into view. It had been scheduled for demolition. It was roughly the size of a frigate. Its hull was damaged from decades of use. Target the structure's center, Ben commanded. Let us see how effective our farming equipment really is. Paul's fingers moved across his controls. Trajectory calculated. Projectile loaded. The seed pod is ready for dispersal. The seed pod was actually a tungsten-jacketed container. It was supposedly designed to penetrate planetary atmospheres and plant agriculture starter packages into virgin soil. The fact that it could penetrate 3 meters of composite armor at these speeds was simply a happy accident. Fire. The harvest shook as the railgun fired. The projectile crossed the distance to the old station in less than 2 seconds. It moved so fast it was invisible. The mining station simply stopped existing in any recognizable form. It became an expanding cloud of debris. On the observation deck, Chief Engineer Tim Brooks whistled. That is going to plant a lot of seeds. Beside him, Dr. Helen Price recorded the data carefully. Penetration depth exceeds our expectations. The electromagnetic acceleration system works perfectly in vacuum conditions. I would say our farming equipment is ready for field testing. How many ships do we have operational now? Ben asked over the communication system. Tim checked his tablet. 37 are fully crewed and certified. Another 60 are in various stages of completion. Admiral Hayes is pushing for 100 ships within the year. The fleet grew larger every week, and with it, humanity's confidence grew as well. All across the solar system, similar scenes played out. The HTF Cultivator, under Commander Ryan Scott, tested its mining lasers on captured asteroids. The beams were officially rated for deep core mineral extraction. They carved through solid rock like butter. The fact that they could also slice through starship hulls with equal ease was noted in classified reports. The HTF Plowshare conducted exercises in atmospheric entry. Its heavily armored hull was designed to withstand the friction of multiple planetary descents. Lieutenant Grace Murphy was the ship's pilot. She pushed the vessel through movements that would have been suicidal for any craft not built to military specifications. "She handles like a dream," Grace reported to her commander. "The atmospheric stabilizers give us precision control even at high speeds. If we ever need to make a combat drop, we will be ready." Not everyone in the Galactic Council was blind to what humanity was doing. Counselor Threx was a reptilian diplomat from the Saurian Collective. He watched the surveillance footage of human agricultural ships with growing concern. His species had fought wars for thousands of years before achieving peace. He recognized military hardware when he saw it, regardless of what label was attached to it. "They are preparing for war," Threx said to his aide, a younger Saurian named Kresh. "The humans insist they are simply developing their civilian infrastructure," Kresh replied. Though his tone suggested he was skeptical, "Look at these movements." Threx pointed to the screen. 5 agricultural ships were executing a perfect pincer attack around a simulated target. "That is not farming. That is fleet tactics. Should we bring this to the Council?" Threx thought carefully about the question. "Not yet. We have no proof of treaty violations. The humans have been very careful with their documentation. Every system has a civilian justification. Then what do? We watch. And we wait. But I fear we have made a serious error in underestimating these primates." Back on Earth in the underground command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction. She was a stern woman in her 50s. Her hair was gray-streaked and her eyes had seen too many conflicts. Her second-in-command, Colonel Steve Warren, stood at attention across from her desk. "Ma'am, we are ahead of schedule on all construction projects. The Council suspects something, but they cannot prove anything." Patricia nodded. "Good. How are the crews performing?" "Very well. The training programs are producing officers who understand both civilian operations and combat tactics. When the time comes, we will be ready." "If the time comes," Patricia corrected, though her tone suggested she believed it would happen. "I do not want war, Steve. But I will not leave humanity defenseless because some aliens decided we are too dangerous to trust with our own protection." Steve understood perfectly. He had been there 20 years ago when the first alien scouts had arrived at Earth. He had seen the contempt in their eyes when they assessed humanity's technology level. He had heard the dismissive way they categorized humans as primitive warmongers. "The Council made a mistake," Steve said quietly. "They thought they could control us with bureaucracy." Patricia allowed herself a thin smile. "They forgot that humans are very good at finding loopholes. Our agricultural fleet will be the most heavily armed farming operation in galactic history." The HTF Harvest and her sister ships continued their testing. Each exercise pushed the boundaries of what civilian ships could do. The crews grew more skilled with each passing day. The systems became more refined and reliable, and all the while the shipyards kept building more ships. The production rate was impressive. New hulls took shape every week. Engineering teams worked around the clock to install the agricultural systems that were so much more than they appeared to be. In the training facilities on Luna, new crews learned how to operate their ships. They studied civilian procedures and military tactics in equal measure. The instructors were careful to emphasize that everything they did had to have a legitimate civilian purpose. But everyone understood the real reason for the training. Commander Ryan Scott stood before a class of new officers. He was explaining the capabilities of their mining lasers. "Remember," Ryan said, "these are tools for extracting resources from asteroids and planets. The fact that they can cut through armor plating is irrelevant to their primary purpose. You are agricultural specialists, not weapons officers, but you need to know what your equipment can do in any situation." The officers nodded. They understood the game they were playing. Every system had a civilian designation. Every capability had a peaceful explanation. But when the time came, these agricultural ships would fight like warships. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, one of Ryan's officers, raised his hand. "Sir, what if the Council tries to inspect our ships? Then we show them exactly what they expect to see," Ryan replied. "Farming equipment, mining tools, defensive systems appropriate for civilian vessels operating in dangerous space. We have nothing to hide because we have broken no rules." The training continued day and night. Humanity was preparing for something. No one said it openly, but everyone knew. The galaxy was not a safe place. The treaty had left humanity vulnerable, so they had found a way to protect themselves within the letter of the law. The agricultural fleet was that protection, ships that could farm and fight, vessels that could plant seeds and launch railgun projectiles, equipment that could analyze soil and cut through battle armor. The Galactic Council had tried to limit humanity. Instead, they had inspired human creativity and ingenuity to find new solutions. Part 3. The attack came without any warning. The commercial freighter Unity's Promise had been on a routine supply run from Earth to the Mars colonies. Then its distress signal reached the nearest agricultural ship. The HTF cultivator was 3 hours away. It was conducting routine crop satellite deployments in the outer system. Commander Ryan Scott read the distress message with growing anger. Pirates had apparently decided that human ships were easy targets. They were a common problem in the less patrolled regions of the galaxy. "How many hostile ships?" Ryan demanded. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, worked his console rapidly. "Sensors detect 3 ships. Medium-class raiders, heavily armed. They have disabled the Unity's Promise and are demanding cargo. Time to intercept? At maximum speed, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Ryan made his decision instantly. "Plot the course. Bring all systems online. And Sam, prepare our mining equipment for operation." The HTF cultivator accelerated. Her massive engines pushed the agricultural ship to speeds that would have surprised anyone who thought she was just a farming vessel. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. Each member knew exactly what their peaceful civilian systems could do in less peaceful situations. When the cultivator dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the distress signal, the pirates were still attached to the Unity's Promise. They looked like parasites on a dying host. The lead pirate ship was scarred and ugly. It had probably changed hands many times. It immediately sent a message to the approaching agricultural ship. "Human vessel, this does not concern you." The pirate captain snarled over the communication channel. His species was one Ryan did not recognize. He looked vaguely mammalian with too many teeth. "Leave now or be destroyed." Ryan settled back in his command chair. "This is Commander Ryan Scott of the Terran Harvest Fleet. You are violating Sol system sovereignty laws. Release the freighter and surrender immediately." The pirate's laughter was harsh. "You pilot a farming ship, human. What will you do? Throw vegetables at us?" "Something like that," Ryan muttered. Then he raised his voice. "Sam, target the lead ship. Show them what our mining lasers can do." The cultivator's primary laser array locked onto the pirate flagship. It was officially rated for asteroid excavation. The beam that shot out was brilliant blue-white. It was designed to cut through solid rock. Against a ship's hull, even one with military-grade shielding, the effect was devastating. The pirate ship's shields flared brightly. They held for perhaps 3 seconds, then collapsed completely. The laser carved a molten trench along the ship's side. It severed power conduits and breached multiple compartments. "Status?" Ryan asked calmly. Sam checked his sensors. "Target's main engines are offline. Life support is failing. The other 2 ships are breaking off their attack. Send them a message." The remaining pirates responded immediately. Their earlier confidence was replaced with something that looked like respect and fear. "This was a misunderstanding," one of them stammered. "We did not know humans had such powerful ships." "You attacked our people," Ryan said coldly. "That is all the understanding I need. You have 2 options. Surrender now, or find out what our other agricultural equipment can do." The pirates chose to surrender. By the time a proper Galactic Council patrol arrived, 6 hours later, the scene was clean and peaceful. The Unity's Promise was secure. Her crew was shaken but unharmed. The pirate ships were contained. Their crews were in custody, and the HTF cultivator sat peacefully in the center of it all. Her agricultural systems were powered down and looked innocent. The Council patrol commander was an avian species named Crickstal. He boarded the cultivator with obvious suspicion. "Commander Scott," Crickstal said, his feathers ruffled with agitation. I need to understand what happened here. The pirates claim you destroyed their flagship with a single shot. Ryan pointed to his tactical display. The official logs were ready for inspection. We responded to a distress call from a human ship under attack. We used our mining laser to disable the attacking ship. It is all within our rights for self-defense under council law. Mining laser, Crixtel repeated flatly. That is correct. The same equipment we use to extract resources from asteroids. Quite effective when properly focused. Crixtel examined the logs, the damage reports, and the testimony from the pirates. Everything supported the human story, even if the implications were disturbing. Your agricultural ship is remarkably well armed. Commander, our agricultural ship is remarkably well equipped, Ryan corrected smoothly. There is a difference. We operate in dangerous space. The Council's treaty prohibits us from building military ships, but it says nothing about ensuring our civilian ships can protect themselves. The patrol commander knew he was being manipulated, but there was nothing he could do about it. The humans had stayed within the letter of the law, if not its spirit. News of the incident spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. Zekrath found himself summoned before the full council chamber. It was a vast amphitheater where representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The mood was decidedly hostile. Ambassador Zekrath began Councillor Mexran. He was a floating gas being who served as the council's military oversight chair. It seems your assurances about human compliance with the treaty were premature. Zekrath's mouth parts clicked nervously. The humans have not violated the treaty. Their ship was indeed an agricultural craft exactly as designated. An agricultural craft that destroyed a pirate warship, Mexran countered, with a mining laser that apparently rivals military-grade weaponry. They were defending themselves and another civilian ship. That is their right under council law. Councillor Threx, the Saurian diplomat who had been watching humanity carefully, stood to address the chamber. The issue is not whether the humans broke the letter of the treaty. It is whether we should have written the treaty differently. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species demanded immediate sanctions against humanity. Others argued for renegotiating the terms. A few, those who had their own troubled histories with the council's bureaucracy, remained quietly amused. Jake Morrison attended the session as Earth's representative. He waited patiently for his turn to speak. When the chamber finally quieted enough, he rose to address the council. Honored members, Jake began. His voice carried clearly through the vast space. Humanity has followed every requirement placed upon us. We have built no warships. We have constructed only civilian ships for peaceful purposes. Peaceful purposes that include weaponry capable of destroying military ships, someone shouted from the floor. Jake smiled thinly. Is it our fault that the tools needed for space exploration, mining, and terraforming happen to be powerful? Should we build inferior equipment that would endanger our civilian crews, just to make the council feel more comfortable? You are deliberately avoiding the spirit of the treaty, Zekrath accused. We are surviving in a galaxy that told us we were not allowed to defend ourselves properly, Jake shot back. What did you expect us to do? Today it was pirates. Tomorrow it could be something worse. Would you have us be victims because you are uncomfortable with human ingenuity? The debate raged on for hours. But in the end, the council could find no legal grounds to sanction Earth. The treaty stood, and with it, humanity's right to build their unusual agricultural fleet. On the bridge of the HTF cultivator, Ryan received word of the council's decision with satisfaction. Beside him, Sam grinned. Looks like we are going to be farming for a while longer, Commander. Indeed, Ryan agreed, though I suspect our crop yields are going to be very impressive. Part 4.8. Months after the pirate incident, the Galactic Council faced a problem they had not expected. The Krell Dominion was an aggressive militaristic empire. They existed on the edge of council space. They had begun raiding colony worlds along the frontier. The Krell were a warrior culture. They were insectoid like Zekrath's species, but far more hostile and expansionist. They respected only strength. The Council's diplomatic efforts had been met with contempt. When the Krell fleet struck the agricultural world of New Harmony, everything changed. They destroyed its orbital defenses and began a ground invasion. The Council mobilized its forces, but New Harmony was close to the Sol system. It was dangerously close to Earth's expanding sphere of influence, and New Harmony had a significant human population. Over 50,000 colonists had settled there under council authorization. Admiral Patricia Hayes received the distress call in the middle of the night, Earth time. By dawn, she had assembled her senior staff in the command center. "How many ships can we deploy immediately?" she asked Colonel Steve Warren. 47 agricultural ships are fully crewed and operational. Another 20 are in various stages of readiness. Patricia studied the tactical display showing New Harmony's location. "The Council's response fleet will not arrive for 5 days. Our people will be dead or enslaved by then. The treaty prohibits us from engaging in military actions outside our own system," Steve reminded her carefully. "The treaty prohibits us from building warships," Patricia corrected. "It says nothing about agricultural ships responding to distress calls from human citizens. We have every legal right to protect our colonists." She turned to address the room. "Mobilize the fleet. I want every available agricultural ship prepared for immediate deployment. We are going to New Harmony." The largest assembly of human spacecraft ever gathered began forming up near Mars. The HTF Harvest, Cultivator, Plowshare, and 44 other agricultural ships arranged themselves into formation. Their crews were prepared for what everyone knew would be the first true test of their capabilities. Captain Ben Hughes of the Harvest found himself designated as fleet commander for the operation. Admiral Hayes would coordinate from Earth. The responsibility was enormous. But Ben had trained for this moment since the fleet's creation. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Paul Green announced from his station. Ben took a deep breath. "Then let us go farming. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The agricultural fleet vanished in a flash of exotic particles. They crossed the light years to New Harmony in what would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. They emerged in a war zone. The Krell had brought 36 warships, proper military vessels bristling with weapons. They had established orbital superiority. They were systematically destroying New Harmony's infrastructure. On the planet below, human and alien colonists fled before advancing Krell ground forces. The Krell fleet commander was a creature named Warlord Kreshtar. He detected the human ships immediately. His initial assessment was dismissive. Agricultural ships? The humans had sent farmers to fight? "Destroy them," Kreshtar ordered. "Show these primates what happens when civilians interfere in war." A squadron of Krell warships separated from the bombardment fleet. They accelerated toward the human ships. They expected easy targets, soft civilian craft that would crumble under the first attack. They were catastrophically wrong. Ben watched the approaching Krell ships with cold calculation. "All ships assume attack formation Gamma. Prepare agricultural systems for maximum output." The Terran fleet spread out. They were not fleeing but maneuvering with precision that spoke of extensive training. Each captain knew their role. They had drilled these movements 100 times. "Krell ships entering optimal range," Paul announced. "They are powering up weapons. Fire." 47 agricultural ships opened up simultaneously. Railguns that were officially seed dispersal systems sent tungsten projectiles screaming through space at incredible speeds. Mining lasers capable of cutting through asteroids focused their beams on Krell hulls. Particle screens designed for meteorite protection proved equally effective against energy weapons. The Krell squadron never knew what hit them. 3 ships simply disintegrated under the barrage. Their shields were overwhelmed by the sheer volume of fire. 2 more took critical damage and began tumbling out of control. The survivors, those quick enough to raise full defensive screens, found themselves facing weaponry they had never encountered before. "What are these ships?" One Krell captain transmitted in panic before his ship was cut in half by a mining laser. Warlord Kreshtar watched his squadron's destruction with growing horror. These were not agricultural ships. These were warships in disguise. Every bit as deadly as his own fleet. All forces engaged the human ships. "I want them destroyed." The Battle of New Harmony had begun in earnest. The Krell fleet turned to face the human agricultural fleet. 36 strong against 47. It should have been an overwhelming advantage. Proper warships against civilian craft. But the humans had spent months preparing for this moment. They had advantages the Krell had not expected. Human ships were heavily armored. They were designed to survive atmospheric entry and asteroid impacts. Krell weapons that would have crippled normal civilian craft barely scratched the agricultural ships' hulls. Human weapons, while officially civilian equipment, had been refined through extensive testing. The railguns achieved speeds that few military-grade kinetic weapons could match. The mining lasers had focus and penetration capabilities that exceeded Council military standards. And human tactics, developed through centuries of warfare on Earth before first contact, proved superior to the Krell's straightforward attack strategies. Captain Grace Murphy of the HTF Plowshare led her squadron in a flanking movement. They caught a Krell battlecruiser between multiple firing arcs. Concentrate fire on the target's reactor section. Our soil analysis equipment should penetrate their armor nicely. The Plowshare and 3 sister ships fired together. 4 mining lasers converged on a single point. They bored through the Krell ship's armor like it was paper. The battlecruiser's reactor breach was spectacular. A miniature star bloomed in the darkness. Commander Ryan Scott of the Cultivator engaged in a deadly dance with 2 Krell destroyers. His ship's ability to maneuver surprised the enemy ships. Deploy the particle screens at full intensity. Let us see how they like our meteorite protection. The Krell fired. Their plasma cannons sent bolts of superheated matter toward the Cultivator. The particle screens were electromagnetic fields designed to deflect space debris. They bent and dispersed the plasma. The attacks became nearly harmless. Ryan returned fire with his railgun. A seed pod officially designated for orbital drops but loaded with a tungsten penetrator. The projectile punched through the lead destroyer's bridge. It killed the crew instantly. Throughout the battle, the human ships demonstrated capabilities that defied their civilian designations. Agricultural processors that could launch projectiles at near light speed. Mining equipment that could cut through military-grade armor. Defensive systems that could withstand sustained bombardment. The Krell fought bravely, but they were outmatched. Within 3 hours, half their fleet was destroyed or disabled. Warlord Kreshtar watched his flagship burning and his warriors dying. He made the only decision a survival-oriented commander could make. Retreat. All ships withdraw from this system immediately. The surviving Krell warships disengaged. They fled into faster-than-light travel with the agricultural fleet in pursuit. Ben called off the chase after several light years. He was content to let the survivors carry word of what had happened. The human agricultural fleet returned to New Harmony as heroes. The colonists on the planet below had watched the battle from their shelters. They had seen farming ships fight like warships. They had witnessed humanity's hidden strength revealed. Part 5, the aftermath of the Battle of New Harmony, spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. News traveled fast through the Galactic Council's communication networks. Humanity's agricultural fleet had defeated a Krell battle group. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The vast chamber was filled with representatives demanding explanations, sanctions, and in some cases outright punishment for humanity's actions. Zekrath stood before the assembly. His earlier smugness was replaced with something that looked like desperation. The humans deployed a military fleet. They engaged in offensive warfare. This is a clear violation of the treaty. Jake Morrison, representing Earth, rose to respond. He had the calm demeanor of someone holding all the winning cards. Ambassador Zekrath, I would like to correct several inaccuracies in your statement. First, we deployed agricultural ships, not a military fleet. Every ship that participated in the operation was designated and registered as civilian. They destroyed an entire Krell battle group. Someone shouted from the floor. They defended human colonists from unlawful aggression. Jake countered smoothly. Under council law, we have the right to protect our citizens. Or would you prefer we had abandoned 50,000 people to slavery and death? Counselor Threx, the Saurian diplomat, watched the proceedings with what might have been amusement. When recognized, he addressed the chamber with a pointed observation. Perhaps the question we should be asking is not whether the humans violated the treaty, but whether the treaty itself was flawed from the beginning. The chamber erupted in argument. But Threx continued over the noise. We told a species they could not build warships, then acted surprised when they built civilian ships capable of warfare. We demanded they remain defenseless, then condemned them for finding ways to protect themselves. The humans have followed the letter of our law while completely subverting its intent. Perhaps we should admire their ingenuity rather than punish their survival instinct. Counselor Mexran, the military oversight chair, floated forward to address Jake directly. Human representative, let me pose a hypothetical question. If we were to lift the restrictions on military ship construction, what would your response be? Jake pretended to consider the question, though he and Admiral Hayes had prepared for this exact scenario. Counselor, Earth has no desire for an arms race or galactic domination. However, we do require the ability to defend ourselves and our interests. If the Council were to grant us the same rights as other member species, we would be happy to transition from our current agricultural fleet to properly designated military ships. And these agricultural ships, X-Ron asked pointedly, would be converted to their original intended purpose, Jake replied with a perfectly straight face. Farming. Lisa Grant, attending the session as Earth's scientific advisor, added her own perspective. The Council needs to understand that human innovation does not stop at arbitrary boundaries. Whether you call them agricultural ships or warships, humans will build what they need to survive. Would it not be better to work with us openly, rather than forcing us to be creative with designations? The debate continued for 3 days. Species divided along predictable lines. Some demanded humanity be expelled from the Council. Others argued for accommodation. The Krell Dominion notably remained silent. They were still recovering from the New Harmony defeat. Finally, a vote was called. The resolution passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would be granted full rights to construct military ships. The same restrictions and oversight that applied to other Council species would now apply to Earth. The agricultural fleet would be officially reclassified. Though everyone knew the ships would remain in service for the foreseeable future, Zekrath, his species' reputation damaged by the entire affair, approached Jake after the vote. There was something that looked like respect in his posture. You played us from the beginning, the insectoid said quietly. Jake met his compound eyes without flinching. You tried to cage us with bureaucracy. We simply proved that humans do not stay caged. Perhaps next time the Council encounters a new species, you will remember this lesson. What lesson is that? Never underestimate ingenuity motivated by survival. And never ever tell humans they cannot do something. We will find a way, and we will make you regret the restriction. Back on Earth in the command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Patricia Hayes reviewed the final reports from New Harmony with satisfaction. 0 human casualties, minimal damage to the agricultural fleet, and a decisive victory that had announced humanity's presence on the galactic stage. Colonel Steve Warren entered her office with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. I thought we should celebrate, ma'am. The Council just approved the construction of our first official warship. Patricia accepted a glass but did not drink immediately. It is a victory, Steve, but let us not get overconfident. We have made enemies today, powerful ones who will not forget how we embarrassed them. The Krell, among others. The galaxy just learned that humans are more dangerous than they assumed. Some species will want to ally with us. Others will want to destroy us before we become too powerful. Steve raised his glass. Then let us make sure we are ready for either scenario. What should we name our first real warship? Patricia smiled. It was a predatory expression that would have worried anyone who knew her well. I have been thinking about that. We will call her the TDF Ingenuity, a reminder to ourselves and everyone else that human creativity is our greatest weapon. They clinked glasses. They were celebrating not just a victory, but humanity's emergence as a true galactic power. 6 months later, the first official Terran Defense Force warship slid out of the Mars shipyards. The TDF Ingenuity was a beautiful ship. It was purpose-built for warfare with none of the compromises that had defined the agricultural fleet. But in the background, the agricultural ships continued their work. The HTF Harvest, Cultivator, Plowshare, and dozens of others remained in service. Their crews were proud of their unusual ships and their unconventional designations. Captain Ben Hughes stood on his bridge. He watched the Ingenuity's maiden voyage on the view screen. He could not help but feel nostalgic for the days when his warship had been called a farming ship. Sir, Lieutenant Paul Green said from his station, we are receiving new orders. Agricultural survey of the Kepler system, with special attention to potential colony sites. Ben grinned. How convenient that the Kepler system is right next to disputed Krell territory. I suppose they want us there in case any threats to our agricultural operations emerge. That would be my guess, sir. Then let us get our farming equipment ready, Lieutenant. We would not want anything interfering with our crop surveys. The HTF Harvest turned toward the stars, an agricultural ship in name. A warship, in fact, and a symbol of human ingenuity in every way that mattered. Throughout the galaxy, other species took note. The humans had arrived. They were armed with railguns they called seed dispersal systems and mining lasers that could cut through battleships. They had proven that creativity and determination could overcome bureaucratic restrictions. and in shipyards across the Sol system, construction continued on both official warships and agricultural ships. Because humans had learned an important lesson, sometimes the best weapon is one nobody sees coming. The Galactic Council had tried to prevent humanity from building a war fleet. Instead, they had inspired humans to build something far more dangerous, a fleet that could fight wars while technically maintaining civilian status, a force that existed in the gray area between law and reality. Humanity had joined the galactic community on their own terms, with farming equipment that could level armies and civilian crews that could outfight professional warriors. The aliens had claimed humans could not build warships. Humanity had proven them wrong by not building warships at all, just very well-armed farming equipment. Part 6. 1 year after the Battle of New Harmony, the galaxy looked very different. Humanity had established itself as a power to be respected. The agricultural fleet had proven its worth, and the Terran Defense Force was growing stronger every day. Captain Ben Hughes stood on the bridge of the HTF Harvest. His ship was preparing for another mission. This time they were heading to the frontier regions where pirate activity had increased. The official reason was to survey potential agricultural sites. The real reason was to show the flag and remind pirates that human ships were not easy targets. Lieutenant Paul Green worked at his station. He was monitoring the local space traffic. "Sir, we are picking up a distress signal. It is not from a human ship." Ben raised an eyebrow. "What species?" "Appears to be a Valorian merchant vessel. They are under attack by multiple raiders. The Valorians were a peaceful species. They were traders and merchants who operated throughout Council space. They had been among the few species who had not condemned humanity's agricultural fleet." Ben made his decision quickly. "Set a course, maximum speed. And Paul, let the rest of our squadron know we are responding to a distress call." The Harvest and 3 sister ships changed course. They accelerated toward the Valorian vessel's location. Within 30 minutes, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the attack. 4 pirate ships had surrounded the Valorian merchant. They were stripping it of cargo. The merchant's shields were failing. Its weapons were offline. The lead pirate, a species Ben recognized as Kravik's marauders, sent a warning message. "Human ships, this does not concern you. Leave or face consequences." Ben smiled coldly. "This is Captain Ben Hughes of the Terran Harvest Fleet. You are attacking a vessel under Council protection. Stand down immediately or we will respond with force." The pirate captain laughed. "4 of us and 4 of you. We are warriors, you are farmers. This will be interesting." "You have been warned," Ben said simply. Then to his crew, "Target all 4 vessels. Show them what our agricultural equipment can do. Fire at will." The 4 human agricultural ships opened fire simultaneously. The pirates had no chance. Within seconds, 2 of their ships were disabled. The 3rd tried to flee, but was caught by a railgun projectile. The 4th surrendered immediately. The Valorian captain sent a grateful message. "Thank you, human vessels. You saved our lives and our cargo. We will not forget this." Ben responded warmly. "Just doing our job, Captain. Safe travels." As the human ships prepared to continue their survey mission, Paul looked thoughtful. "Sir, word of this is going to spread. We just saved a Valorian ship. That is going to mean something in Council politics." Ben nodded. "Good. Let the galaxy see that humanity uses its strength to protect the innocent, not just to defend ourselves. That is how we build alliances." Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Hayes was having a similar conversation with her staff. The reports from the frontier were encouraging. Human agricultural ships were becoming known as protectors. Species that had been wary of humanity were starting to see Earth as a potential ally. Colonel Steve Warren presented the latest intelligence. "Ma'am, we are receiving requests from several species. They want to purchase our agricultural technology, specifically our defensive systems and our mining equipment." Patricia considered this carefully. "What species?" "The Valorians, as expected. Also the Drakari Confederacy and, surprisingly, the Saurian Collective. Councillor Threx himself submitted the request." Patricia smiled. "The Saurians recognize good military hardware when they see it. What are they offering in return?" Technology exchanges mostly, advanced shield generators faster than light drive improvements, and weapons technology that we could adapt for our real warships. Approve the exchanges with species we trust, but make sure we keep our most advanced systems to ourselves. I do not want our own technology used against us later. Steve nodded. Understood, ma'am. There is one more thing. The Krell Dominion has requested a meeting. They want to discuss a non-aggression pact. Patricia was surprised. The Krell? After we defeated them at New Harmony? Apparently they respect strength. Our agricultural fleet impressed them. They would rather have us as neutral parties than as enemies. Set up the meeting, but make it clear that we will defend our interests and our allies. If they can accept that, we can discuss terms. The meeting with the Krell took place on a neutral station. Warlord Kreshtar himself attended. He had survived the Battle of New Harmony and had learned from the experience. Jake Morrison represented Earth at the negotiations. He met the Krell warlord in a conference room. Kreshtar's warrior culture valued directness, so Jake decided to be direct. Warlord, why should Earth trust the Krell? You attacked our colonists without provocation. Kreshtar's mandibles clicked. It was a sign of respect in his culture. Because you defeated us fairly. In my culture, that earns respect. We underestimated humans. We thought your agricultural ships were weak. We were wrong. Now we know the truth. Humans are warriors who disguise themselves as farmers. Jake almost smiled. We are not warriors. We are survivors. But we will fight when necessary to protect our people. That is the same thing, Kreshtar said. Warriors fight, survivors fight. The difference is only in the words you use. The Krell respect humans now. We do not want another conflict with your agricultural fleet. The negotiations lasted several days. In the end, both sides agreed to a non-aggression pact. The Krell would not attack human interests. Humans would not interfere in Krell territory. It was not a friendship, but it was better than war. 6 months later, something unexpected happened. A new threat emerged in Council space. An unknown species from beyond the frontier had begun attacking colonies. They were technologically advanced and very aggressive. They called themselves the Zentari Swarm. The Galactic Council mobilized its forces. But the Zentari were unlike anything the Council had faced before. They used swarm tactics. Thousands of small ships working together like a hive mind. Traditional Council fleet tactics were ineffective against them. Admiral Patricia Hayes received an urgent message from the Council. They were requesting human assistance. Specifically, they wanted the agricultural fleet to join the defense. Patricia called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. Thoughts? Colonel Steve Warren spoke first. This is our chance to prove we are a valuable member of the Council. Not just as a nuisance they have to tolerate, but as a real ally. Commander Danny Walsh agreed. Our agricultural ships are designed to operate independently but coordinate in fleet actions. That might be exactly what is needed against a swarm enemy. Patricia made her decision. Mobilize the fleet, all available agricultural vessels and our new warships. We are going to show the Council what humanity can do. The Terran fleet assembled quickly. 60 agricultural ships and 10 proper warships of the Terran Defense Force. It was the largest human fleet ever deployed. Captain Ben Hughes was appointed overall fleet commander. They joined the Council forces at the edge of contested space. The combined fleet was impressive. Ships from dozens of species all working together against the Zentari threat. The battle, when it came, was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in generations. The Zentari sent wave after wave of small attack craft. Traditional warships struggled to target so many small, fast-moving enemies. But the human agricultural ships were different. Their mining lasers, designed to cut through asteroids, could track and destroy multiple targets rapidly. Their railguns, with their high rate of fire, could saturate areas with projectiles. Their particle screens could create defensive zones that protected entire formations. Ben coordinated his fleet with precision. All agricultural vessels, spread out into defensive positions, create overlapping fields of fire. Our mining equipment should have no problem with these small craft. The human ships moved into position. When the Zentari swarm attacked, they met a wall of defensive fire. Mining lasers swept through their formations like scythes through wheat. Railguns filled space with tungsten projectiles. The Zentari craft fell by the hundreds. Other council species watched in amazement. The humans, with their supposedly civilian agricultural ships, were devastating the enemy swarm. Tactics that had failed for traditional warships worked perfectly for farming vessels converted to combat. Commander Ryan Scott of the Cultivator found himself fighting alongside a Saurian battlecruiser. The Saurian captain sent a message. "Human vessel, your mining lasers are very effective. Can you provide cover while we maneuver?" Ryan responded immediately. "Happy to help, Captain. Consider it a farming demonstration." The battle lasted for hours. But slowly, surely, the Zentari swarm was pushed back. The combined council fleet, with the human agricultural vessels at its core, achieved victory. In the aftermath, the Galactic Council held a ceremony. They formally recognized humanity's contribution to the defense. More importantly, they acknowledged that the restrictions placed on Earth had been a mistake. Jake Morrison stood before the council chamber once more. But this time the mood was different. Respectful, appreciative. Councillor Mexran addressed the assembly. "The humans have proven themselves, not just as clever rule followers, but as true allies. I move that all remaining restrictions on human military development be permanently lifted." The vote was unanimous. Zekrath, attending the ceremony, approached Jake.